The human psyche, in its developmental trajectory, frequently anchors its sense of value to external validation. This pervasive influence of external judgment often constructs a self-perception rooted in the opinions of others, rather than an intrinsic understanding of one's own being. Carl Jung, observing this fundamental human predicament, articulated it succinctly: "The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think." This fear dictates a significant portion of our lived experience, subtly influencing our actions, thoughts, and even our most private moments. Consider the common behavioral reflex: the immediate reach for a digital device upon waking. Before personal introspection, before even confronting one's own reflection, there is an unconscious scan for external affirmation, a message, a notification, a sign of being perceived. The absence of such signals can trigger a subtle yet profound affective void, a localized emotional deficit that resonates throughout the day. This is not an innate emptiness, rather, it is a psychological lacuna formed over years by incremental emotional wounds, unexpressed sentiments, and disregarded internal states. Within each adult often resides an unaddressed inner child, perpetually seeking a gesture of affirmation, silently posing the query, "Will I be loved today?" Jung's clinical observations revealed a consistent pattern. Individuals presenting with grievances against others, a spouse's perceived lack of understanding, friends' infrequent contact, familial disinterest, were often deflecting from a more profound internal inquiry. His gentle but incisive counter-questions, such as, "Do you understand yourself? Do you seek yourself? Do you value yourself?" frequently met with silence, highlighting an unrecognized deficiency in self-awareness. This dynamic illustrates the critical distinction between authentic connection and what is often mislabeled as love, but is, in essence, a conditioned attachment born of fear. This fear manifests as an apprehension of isolation, a dread of invisibility, or the profound anxiety of losing one's reflected identity in the eyes of another. To claim love for an individual while actually cherishing one's own mirrored image in their gaze is a common psychological misdirection. The severance from an individual is painful, but the loss of this externalized self-perception can be devastating, leading to prolonged psychological distress. The most significant suffering following a relational dissolution often stems not from the depth of affection for the other, but from the extent to which one's own identity was projected onto and derived from that individual. The path to liberation from such dependencies commences with the conscious identification of these hidden behavioral chains. An unacknowledged constraint cannot be transcended. The process demands an initial recognition, followed by an emotional processing, and then a gradual deconstruction of these ingrained patterns. This is not an instantaneous transformation but a sustained, iterative journey. Imagine a morning when the first glance is not at a screen, but at one's own face in the mirror, met with an authentic smile, a genuine turning inward. As Jung posited, the source of internal discord is frequently not an external antagonist, but an unresolved internal incompleteness, projected onto and confronted through our interactions. This explains the cyclical nature of recurring conflicts in relationships. The underlying psychological deficit remains unaddressed, merely shifting its external manifestation. True psychological maturity often begins when external modification attempts cease, and the internal void is acknowledged. The common aversion to solitude is often a misinterpretation of its true nature. What many fear is not the absence of others, but the profound internal quietude that such absence precipitates. In this quiet, an unacknowledged internal presence often emerges, the parts of oneself that have been systematically ignored. This is why, when confronted with an empty evening, the immediate impulse is often to seek external stimuli. A screen, a scroll, a distraction. This constant external noise serves to suppress an endogenous cognitive dialogue, a conversation with the self that, though challenging, offers profound insights. As Jung observed, an individual who consistently evades the self carries that self, and its unresolved issues, everywhere. New environments, new relationships, new careers, all become stages upon which the same unhealed wound is reenacted. There exists a critical ontological distinction between loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is an affective state, an emotional vacuum that attempts to draw sustenance from external sources, often fruitlessly. Being alone, conversely, is an existential condition, a state of self-contained completeness where external company is absent but internal harmony prevails. One can experience profound loneliness amidst a multitude of people, yet feel an expansive sense of well-being in solitary contemplation. The issue is not the quantitative presence of others, but the qualitative alignment with one's own internal narrative. Without cultivating a state of internal peace, all external relationships risk becoming conduits for personal unresolved needs. The psychological burden of wearing a mask, of performing a persona to align with external expectations, is significant. This conditioned behavior, often ingrained from formative experiences, creates a constant state of cognitive dissonance. The fear of confronting one's unmasked self is a primary driver in avoiding solitude. When was the last occasion, for example, when one sat in silence for an hour, devoid of digital input, music, or external conversation? For many, this simple act is profoundly uncomfortable. The internal monologue, long suppressed by external stimuli, begins to articulate discomforts, unfulfilled desires, and misaligned life choices. This internal voice, far from being an adversary, functions as an endogenous guidance system, a friend attempting to reorient one towards authenticity. To learn to be alone is not a punitive measure but a profound therapeutic gift, offering the opportunity for unburdened self-discovery. The greatest psychological deception we perpetuate is the belief that authentic self-expression will lead to social rejection. The paradox is that when one operates under a facade, it is the mask that garners conditional acceptance, not the true self. Should that mask falter, the conditional affection often dissipates. Authentic love, therefore, can only truly manifest when the courage to shed the mask is embraced. Self-sufficiency is often misconstrued as a state of emotional detachment or social isolation. This is an erroneous interpretation. A self-sufficient individual is not one who erects emotional barriers, but rather one who operates from a position of internal abundance. Such individuals do not engage in transactional relationships, seeking to extract validation or emotional sustenance from others. Instead, their capacity to love is an expression of their internal plenitude, offered freely, without expectation of reciprocation. This profound difference liberates relationships from the burden of unmet needs. An individual lacking self-sufficiency clings to others, interpreting their brief absences as catastrophic threats, their delayed responses as signs of impending abandonment. This is not love, it is fear cloaked in the guise of affection, a persistent anxiety that the internal void will become unmanageable if external support wavers. As Jung frequently emphasized, internal incompleteness drives an endless, unfulfilling search for external wholeness, as no external fragment can genuinely fill an internal void. The authentic moments of life, those genuinely experienced for their own sake, without the immediate impulse to share or seek external affirmation, are the most profound. The quiet enjoyment of a sunset, a solitary meal, or a personal accomplishment, savored internally, without the performance for an unseen audience, represents a profound act of self-reclamation. This cultivation of internal satisfaction, independent of external validation, is a cornerstone of self-sufficiency. In moments of stress, rather than immediately seeking external solace, an internal dialogue, what am I feeling? What is the origin of this emotion? What message does it convey? Can be profoundly more therapeutic. External comfort offers temporary palliation, internal understanding provides enduring resolution. Jung's definition of a psychologically mature individual highlights this. A mature person is one who is not afraid to love, but also does not beg for love. This aphorism encapsulates the essence of self-sufficiency, the capacity for profound connection without contingent reliance. If the refusal of another does not dismantle one's internal world, or if a departure initiates a new internal trajectory rather than systemic collapse, it signifies the development of genuine psychological autonomy. This journey is gradual, demanding small, consistent acts of self-affirmation. Each morning, a commitment to oneself, fulfilled by evening, builds an incremental internal resilience. Over time, this cumulative effort constructs an unshakable internal foundation. The subtle distinction Jung sought to convey lies in the source of our connection to others. The whole individual loves voluntarily. The incomplete individual loves out of necessity. The former is a choice, the latter, a compulsion. Relationships predicated on necessity invariably accumulate an unsustainable psychological burden. True love emerges when two self-sufficient individuals choose to co-create, rather than co-depend. Within each person resides an indigenous voice, an internal compass, often muted by the clamor of external inputs, media, societal expectations, familial directives. This constant external noise suppresses the subtle guidance of intuition. Yet, beneath this cacophony, the internal voice patiently awaits recognition. As Jung noted, when an individual is alienated from their own internal guidance system, even minor life stressors can become overwhelming, as decisions are perpetually outsourced. The answers often reside internally, awaiting an intentional space for their emergence. To reclaim this internal voice necessitates the creation of psychic space. The relentless pursuit of external stimulation, contrary to popular belief, often diminishes internal vitality. A deliberate week-long cessation from social media, for instance, initially elicits discomfort, a sense of aimlessness. Gradually, however, the external world seems to decelerate, and a quiet internal whisper begins to emerge, articulating insights long suppressed. The draining nature of certain relationships, the incongruence of past decisions, the latent aspirations awaiting actualization. These revelations, surprisingly, are not found in external doctrines or expert advice, but within the self. As Jung observed, those who look outside, dream. Those who look inside, awaken. This invitation to introspection demands courage, for the internal landscape harbors not only beauty but also unaddressed pain, suppressed anger, and unacknowledged memories. Practical techniques facilitate this internal re-engagement. 5 minutes of ceiling gazing upon waking, journaling without self-censorship, walking in nature without digital distraction. These seemingly simple practices foster a deeper self-acquaintance, revealing patterns of nourishment and depletion, moments of ease and dis-ease. This process gradually recalibrates the internal compass. With this clarity, decision-making becomes an intuitive process. What feels congruent brings ease. What is incongruent generates internal resistance. This internal barometer, once re-established, mitigates the debilitating influence of external voices. To command one's internal voice is to command one's life. Let every individual who enters your life be there by choice, not by necessity. The dependent individual constructs relationships as chains. The self-sufficient individual experiences them as wings. Jung's profound statement bears repeating. True maturity is a state of mind that can stand alone, needing no one's approval, yet is not ashamed to love. This philosophy transcends the common extremes of clingy dependence or defensive isolation. The mature individual navigates the nuanced middle ground. Love without enslavement, intimacy without self-abnegation. The comfort experienced in the presence of self-sufficient individuals stems from their non-demanding presence. They welcome connection without clinging, and accept departure without psychological collapse. This equilibrium allows others to breathe. Conversely, interaction with a dependent individual can be exhausting, as one constantly navigates their unspoken expectations, their implicit plea for validation. This burden is unsustainable, as no single individual can fulfill the totality of another's internal voids. The true nature of love, then, becomes a critical inquiry. Jung's metaphor clarifies. Water poured from a full cup is a blessing. Water demanded from an empty cup is a debt. When giving, do we expect reciprocity? Does an internal ledger quietly tally our contributions, anticipating a return? If so, the act is not a gift but a transaction. A true gift, arising from an internal abundance, anticipates nothing in return. If one's cup overflows, there is ample for all. If it is empty, even drops are begrudged. Commence with small, daily commitments to the self. Greet yourself before engaging with a device. Prioritize. What do I want? Over. What will others say? In decisions. Extend this inquiry to relationships. Am I with this person to avoid solitude, or does their presence genuinely enrich me? Can I be authentically myself, or do I feel compelled to assume a different persona? These questions, though potentially disruptive, are ultimately constructive. One cannot build a new edifice on crumbling foundations. The process demands deconstruction before reconstruction. When one cultivates a life of self-care and self-respect, the realization emerges that one is neither isolated nor pathologically dependent. Loved ones may be present, but their absence does not precipitate emotional collapse. Grief at separation is a human response, but even within that sorrow, the strength to rise again emanates from an internal bedrock, painstakingly constructed over time. This foundation, though not built overnight, renders one resilient against all external storms. Consider your present moment. What genuine obstacles impede the construction of this internal edifice? The impediments are fewer than perceived. The majority reside internally, as does the inherent strength to overcome them. As Jung observed, to love someone without fear of losing them is a privilege only for those who have not lost themselves. An individual with a robust sense of self loses only the person when a loved one departs. An individual devoid of a strong self loses not only the person but also the fragmented self they projected onto that individual. This explains the protracted, debilitating nature of some separations, where a departure feels like a partial annihilation. Self-sufficiency is not the rejection of love, but the fundamental reorientation of its source.